So our last topic here is a multiple regression model, and when this happens, we've got multiple explanatory variables that we're trying to figure out. All right, and so our sample regression model is going to look like y hat equals, and then we've got several different explanatory variables, several different x's. And the difference here is that when we go in to do regression, we click on the box next to input y range and select the y data values for input x range, simultaneously select the x data values. So that is what we're going to make sure that we click and do, and you'll see when we get to that example. But first, let's just kind of make sense of a multiple regression. So we've got this multiple regression. We have two x values. Predict y if x1 equals 40 and x2 equals 10. So here we've got our y predictor, our y hat there. So we'll just go ahead and plug that in. So -8 plus 2.6, our x1 is 40, our x2 is -10. When we type that into our calculator, we should get 568. Now, interpreting is a little bit different. Everything is the same except for any variable that we're not talking about, any x variable we're not talking about, we're going to say is constant. So we're interpreting the slope for the coefficient of x2. So as x2 increases by 1, remember it's always increasing by 1, we talk about the y, right? We're interpreting this here. The y decreases by -47.2. And then all we're going to say is that this guy holds steady while x1 or whatever other variables hold constant. Okay. So that's how you deal with interpreting one slope when you've got other slopes going on. So you interpret that one while the other ones go. All right. So here it is written out as well. Go ahead and give this one a try before we do a problem in context. Press play when you're ready to see the solution. And there you go. So we're going to go back to income and debt, but now we are going to deal with our unemployment. So before we head into Excel, first let's get a clear understanding of what our x's and y's are. So before we just did, here we're going to do debt payments influenced by income and unemployment rate. So our debt payments are our y, right? Our debt payments are the response variable. That's what's responding to both income and unemployment rate. All right. So we just need to make sure that we understand kind of what is going on here. We're going to head into Excel now because they want us to estimate the multiple linear regression model. All right, so we're going to go into our data analysis, regression, and our y input, our y is debt. So make sure we grab the labels here. And then our input, we're going to do it simultaneously, income and unemployment. All right, so we've got all of this. We do have labels. We're going to click OK. And when we pull this out here, we can actually see that we get coefficients with those two different headings, and that's exactly what we want. So let's go ahead and grab those. We'll bring those over. Okay, so for A, we're going to go ahead and write, so we can write it with y hat. We'll do it both ways. So we've got y hat is equal to, and our intercept is 198.996 plus income, we've got 10.512 x1 plus 0.619 x2. Now let's go ahead and interpret those. So our y is debt, so debt with the hat is equal to 198.996 plus 10.512. Our x1 here is income plus 0.619, our x2 is unemployment. All right, so now it wants us to interpret all of these coefficients. So let's start here. So these coefficients, this coefficient here, remember income is in thousands. So this is saying for every, and so it would normally be 1, but because we're talking about 1,000, for every 1,000 increase in income, y increases by this value by 10, and what is y? Sorry, debt increases by $10.51. All right, and then here, this coefficient, and we could say while unemployment remains constant, okay? And then here we would say for every, and so we're talking about percentages when we're talking about unemployment here. So for every 1% increase in unemployment, debt increases by 62 cents, okay? So those are the regression coefficients. And so if predict debt payments if income is 80,000, remember it's in the thousands, so we'll plug in 80 for income, and unemployment is 7.5%, we're going to turn that into 0.075. So excuse me, it's actually not, it's already in percentages, so we can leave it as 7.5. So we'll actually just plug that in here. So here we'll plug in 80, and here we'll plug in 7.5. And when we do that, we get 1,044.61. So if your income is 80,000 and the unemployment rate is 7.5%, your debt payment is going to be $1,044.61. So you can see that here, and you know, this has a really good conversation about the regression and kind of what they mean. So I would definitely take a moment, pause here, and read that. But so ultimately the idea is that you can do more than one variable at a time and see how all of these kind of impact each other. So go ahead and give this problem a try, plus press play when you're ready to see the solution. And that concludes 14.2.